Hello and welcome to my video. My name's Mark Parham. I'm an entrepreneur and property investor, and as Omar correctly said, it is not a Mark Parham video unless we start in the house and transition to the studio. So today we're doing exactly that, and Omar, you had me in fits with that comment. And let's head out to the studio. That red kite's over there. How cool is that? So now we're in the studio. I'm afraid it's absolutely freezing, so I'm gonna have to keep my coat on. But let's start going through mortgages. Should you be repaying or should you be keeping them on interest only? So let's preface this with exactly what my position is. I've got about £3 million worth of property. I think that's enough zeros. And on those £3 million, I've got about £2 million of debt. And I'm currently geared at about 33%. Now, what does this mean? Well, this means that I have a net worth in property only of about £1 million. And that is enough zeros, fantastic. So the next thing we can do is work out roughly what my mortgage payments will be. So on the £2 million that I owe, the average interest rate is going to be about 3%. You'll need to speak to a mortgage broker to establish what your interest rate will be, but for me, it's about 3% at the moment. So what this means is every year I've got an interest on this debt of approximately £60,000. So if we write that down, and it's really funny, just as I'm simplifying this, it just seems so simple. I've got a big spreadsheet where I list out all the loans, where I list out all the monthly payments, and it's coming in about here. And it's so simplified when you put it on a whiteboard like this. So £60,000 a year in interest is about £5,000 a month. Now, every single one of my properties are on an interest-only mortgage, and let me explain why. If I was to put this onto a repayment mortgage, my repayments every month would be approximately £10,000 a month. Now, there's a very easy way to calculate whether or not you should be doing interest only or whether you should be doing repayment mortgages. And that's based around this interest rate, okay? So I've put a new sheet up so that we can have a quick look at this in depth, okay? So the interest rate was 3% and I could make a guaranteed return of 10%. How much should I borrow? Well, the answer would be as much as possible. Now, life isn't as simple as that because any returns are not necessarily guaranteed when you're investing. So if you buy a property, things can happen with the market, you could go over budget, you know, this is entrepreneurship, okay? But the reality is, if I'm borrowing at 3% and I can make it 10%, I have a 7% spread in that instance. And that's what we call the interest spread. And that is what we're getting for our risk. So if on a property deal, for example, I could make 25% and my interest rate is 3%, then I should again borrow as much as I possibly can. The end net result is I have a 22% spread. So this is why when interest rates are so low that it's very, very interesting to keep everything on an interest-only mortgage. Now, if that interest rate was 13%, and we put a 1 in there, and people who are 90s babies are thinking that could never happen. Well, ask your mum and dad, in the 80s and 90s it did happen. So if interest rates were 13%, and I'm not saying they're going to be, I'm just simply saying if they were, and you could return 10% with risk, how much should you borrow? Well, the answer is very little. You should be paying the debt down. You're not guaranteed your 10% return. It's got risk attached to it, but you've got a 13% mortgage over here, and you should be paying that down to reduce that liability. Now, interest rates at the moment have a historic average of about 5-6% over the last 30 years, and we're looking at a much lower interest rate average moving forward. The Bank of England have been very specific about this, but things can change. I think we are living in a low interest rate environment personally, but I am not an economist and I am not your financial advisor. Please seek independent financial advice. But for me, if I can borrow at 3%, and let's ignore that 1, and I can make it 30%, I'm borrowing as much as I possibly can and I'm pocketing that spread. And that really is how property investing works. You're leveraging cheap money and you're making a spread in between. So the jacket's off, the room's warmed up, probably because I'm excited about these interest rates. But let's go back to my original point and my portfolio. Now, if I was to switch mine onto repayment mortgages, I would be paying £10,000 a month, and that would give me £60,000 a year less to invest. And for me, that could be as many as 2 or 3 deals if I started recycling that cash through it. So for me, it makes no sense for me to go onto a repayment basis. Now, again, if you were to put this interest rate up significantly, my attitude would change significantly. But in the environment that we're currently in, for me, interest only is the only way for me to do property. So what's your opinion? Am I being massively risky? I don't think so. I think I've got everything under control. My rents are at least 4 times my mortgage payments. I've got significant downside protection because I buy cheap, I add value, and my leverage is not too high in my gearing. But what is your opinion? What are you doing with your stuff? Let me know in the comments, I'd be massively interested. And obviously I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a big like. It really does help me out with the YouTube algorithm. And if you want to have a one-to-one chat with me, have a look in the description. There'll be a link. You can book a call with me and we can have a chat about whatever might be on your mind, including debt and interest rates if you want to. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. My name's Mark Parham. Thank you so much for watching.